6 collapsible full-block canoes sliding silently across the River Kwai. Malaria fog hanging low over the black water as moonlight barely outlines their shapes. Commandos crouch low, paddles wrapped in sacking, faces blackened, reflections broken by drifting mist. Major Ivan Lyon in the lead canoe, frozen mid-stroke, his eyes hard and alert beneath burnt cork camouflage. The camera catches the tension in his clenched jaw as a Japanese patrol boat. Searchlight cuts a white blade through fog behind him. A Japanese patrol boat chugging upstream, its silhouette looming through the mist, engine vibrations rippling the water. Sailors stand rigid at their posts as the searchlight sweeps low, illuminating floating debris and drifting leaves. Extreme close-up of paddles entering the water, cloth-wrapped blades barely disturbing the surface. Droplets cling and fall in slow arcs, captured with sharp contrast against the black river. The shadow of a Japanese sentry's boots on the riverbank, toes inches from the water's edge as a cigarette ember glows faintly above. Directly below, the blurred outline of a canoe passes underneath in total silence. Corporal Papa Falls crouched low in his full-bot, silenced Owen gun angled upward, finger tense on the trigger. The faint red glow of the sentry cigarette reflects in his narrowed eyes. Lyon's raised hand in sharp foreground focus, fingers spread in a silent stop signal. Behind it, Fall's weapon lowers reluctantly, fog and jungle vines framing the suspended moment. The canoe's drifting directly beneath the sentry, close enough to see ash falling from his cigarette into the river. His unaware profile hangs above the frame, boots planted on the timber bank. Wide shot of the jungle river returning to silence, patrol boat engine noise fading, mist closing back in like a curtain. The commandos vanish into shadow, swallowed by foliage and darkness. First glimpse of the River Kwai Railway Bridge. Rising from the gorge under thin moonlight, steel trusses cutting jagged shapes against drifting fog. Steam from a locomotive curls upward, like breath in cold air. Japanese locomotives idling on the bridge, tenders loaded with rice sacks, steam valves hissing softly. Harsh moonlight highlights rivets, rails, and the skeletal geometry of the bridge. Z's special unit commandos kneeling among jungle roots, studying the bridge through gaps in foliage. Sweat glistens on bare forearms, webbing straps dark with moisture, faces set with grim focus. Close-up of Lyon whispering orders, lips barely moving, eyes fixed on the steel span ahead. Jungle leaves frame his face, moonlight carving hard lines across his cheekbones. A bamboo viper mid-fall from an overhead branch, frozen in the instant before impact. Lyon's thigh visible below, muscles rigid, his entire body locked in absolute stillness. Extreme close-up of Lyon's clenched fist beside his leg, veins raised, fabric of his trousers stretched tight. The snake's patterned body lies across him, fangs inches from skin. The jungle holding its breath, commandos frozen in place as fog thickens around them. Sweat beads on faces, rifles held mid-motion, not a leaf stirred. Low-angle shot of the railway bridge dominating the frame, moonlight slicing through mist, rails gleaming like bones. Jungle silhouettes crowd the foreground, watching. Final silent frame. The canoes pulled into shadow beneath overhanging vines. Commandos barely visible, the bridge looming ahead. Contrast sharp, fog glowing faintly. History paused one heartbeat before violence. The bamboo viper slipping off Lyon's thigh into the river, its patterned body, caught mid-motion as it vanishes into black water. Lyon's face rigid with control, sweat glistening on his cheek under faint moonlight. Jungle foliage framing the tense silence. 6 full-bot canoes paused motionless on the River Kwai. Commandos frozen mid-paddle, reflections trembling on the water surface. Fog curls low, swallowing sound, the moment captured just before the raid fractures into action. 3 canoes peeling left toward the locomotive yard, their silhouettes drifting into deeper shadow, while Lyon's group pushes straight ahead. The split composition emphasizes separation and risk under a pale, cloudless sky. Lyon's canoe gliding beneath the iron lattice of the bridge, moonlight slicing through steel girders, casting sharp prism bar shadows across his face, and the water below. Rivets and beams loom overhead like a mechanical skeleton, close-up of paddles cutting the river beneath the bridge, every stroke precise and shallow, moonlight flickering across ripples. The tension visible in white knuckles gripping the shafts. Lieutenant Bob Page crouched low in his canoe, limpet mines strapped across his chest, eyes fixed on a concrete piling. The bridge's massive structure towers behind him, steam drifting from locomotives above. Page pressing a limpet mine against a bridge pier, adhesive tape stretched tight around the steel casing, water dripping from his sleeves. His thumb hovers over the chemical delay fuse, face half lit by reflected moonlight. Extreme close-up of the delay fuse being armed. Page's fingers steady, despite sweat and river water. The small mechanism sharply in focus against the blurred dark current below. A Japanese engineer silhouetted on the embankment, Captain Nakayama stepping from a guardhouse. Posture relaxed, floodlights bleaching the yard behind him, rails boxcars, and steam pipes form rigid industrial lines. Page frozen mid-motion beneath the bridge, eyes locked on the distant silhouette of Nakayama. The frame captures the unbearable pause, bridge shadows cutting diagonally across his face. Nakayama lighting a cigarette. The flare briefly illuminating his profile before he turns and walks into a rolling cloud of steam from an idling locomotive. His figure dissolves into white vapor. The steam plume swallowing the embankment, floodlights diffused into a glowing haze, the engineer completely erased. The bridge and yard fade into abstraction, chance intervening on film. Page completing the final mine placement, his hand pulling back as the mine locks into place with a soft click. The bridge pier dominates the frame, water lapping quietly at its base. A distant slave labor camp barely visible through trees, barbed wire, and crude huts silhouetted as sound drifts unseen. The photograph captures the river's stillness, heavy with unseen suffering. A lone POW harmonica player unseen but implied. The camera focused on rippling water carrying sound across the frame. The mood conveyed through empty space, fog, and the suggestion of music and silence. Corporal Ron Taffy Morris gripping his paddle, knuckles pale, eyes unfocused for a split second as homesickness breaks through discipline. Lion's blurred figure behind him turns sharply, Lion regrouping the team at the river bend. 6 canoes clustered in shadow, whispered orders exchanged, watches checked. Moonlight reflects faintly off wet canvas and steel. Final frame, the canoes pushing hard downstream, paddles biting the water in synchronized strokes, fog thinning slightly as the bridge recedes behind them. Unseen above, the railway rests quietly, already doomed. 6 full-bot canoes, slicing hard downriver, paddles biting the black water in rapid synchronized strokes. Lion in the lead counts silently, jaw clenched. Moonlight flashing across taut arms and dripping blades as mist tears apart in their wake. A tight low-angle shot from river level, showing canoe bows cutting through rippling reflections of steel girders overhead. The bridge looms behind them, fuse time ticking invisibly as tension compresses the frame. The first explosion erupting beneath locomotive C5631, a blinding white flash tearing through fog as the boiler ruptures. Steam and debris blast outward, the shockwave flattening mist and freezing guards mid-motion along the embankment. Steel fragments and shrapnel raining into the river, captured mid-splash as water erupts in sharp white spikes around fleeing canoes. Fragments strike the surface like hail, contrast razor-sharp against the dark current. The locomotive's boiler tearing open, superheated steam billowing skyward in violent plumes. Twisted metal pedals arc through the air while the bridge structure shudders above, caught in stark silhouette. Second and third explosions rippling along the bridge, girders lifting and twisting as if alive. Sleepers cartwheel off the span, sparks trailing behind them into the gorge below. A fuel tender igniting beside the tracks, flames punching upward and briefly lighting the jungle like daylight. Japanese guards stand frozen in shock, faces lit harshly by fire against the night. Wide shot of the Kwayayi Bridge collapsing, iron screaming as it folds inward. Smoke and flame coil upward, while the river below churns violently, reflecting firelight in shattered streaks. Japanese guards scrambling in chaos along the embankment, bugles raised, mouths open mid-shout. Searchlights swing wildly, cutting hard cones of light through smoke and fog. A machine gun nest on the far bank opening fire. Muzzle flashes strobing the darkness as tracer rounds stitch glowing lines across the river. A surface toward the fleeing canoes, bullets striking the water inches from Corporal Fall's canoe. Splashes erupting beside him as he paddles furiously, teeth bared, eyes wide. The photograph catches raw exertion and fear in sharp relief. Lieutenant Bob Page half-turned in his canoe shouting downriver as tracer fire arcs overhead, his mouth open mid-command, river spray streaking across the lens. Japanese soldiers leaping from a burning embankment into the river. Bodies silhouetted against flames, water exploding on impact. Rifles and helmets tumble after them in chaotic motion. The harmonica fallen silent, implied through emptiness. A dark stretch of river carrying only ripples and drifting smoke. The absence of sound rendered through stillness and space. The extraction point at the mangrove-masked sandspit, Crite looming low in the water with engines idling. Captain Happy Harrison stands silhouetted on deck, watching the river intently. Raiders scrambling aboard the Crite, hands gripping ropes, bodies slick with sweat and river slime, faces streaked with grime, eyes burning with adrenaline as distant fires glow behind them. Lion standing last on the gunwale, backlit by smoke and flame, pausing to look apprever. His posture rigid, one hand gripping the rail, jungle shadows framing the moment. Final wide shot of the shattered railway, locomotives overturned in shallow water like dead beasts, bridges broken and smoking. Firelight fades into the stars as smoke climbs skyward, the river carrying the raiders away into darkness. The Crite easing away from the riverbank at 417, her bow cutting silently into the current, engines throttled low. Behind her, the shattered railway burns fiercely, flames reflecting off black water like a funeral pyre under thinning fog. Wide stern shot of the burning bridge and locomotives. Twisted steel glowing white-hot against the jungle night as smoke boils upward. The Crite's wake pulls away in the foreground, fragile and small against the scale of destruction. Below deck on the Crite, Lion standing among his men, 12 commandos seated or crouched in cramped shadow, faces streaked with grime and sweat. No one speaks, the only light a dim bulb swinging with the ship's motion. Close-up of a commando's hands resting on his knees, fingers trembling slightly, knuckles scraped raw. Water drips from soaked trousers onto the wooden deck, the silence heavy and absolute. Corporal Ron Taffy Morris breaking the silence, head lowered, eyes wet, mouth half open as he mentions the harmonica. Lion's face and profile behind him, jaw tightening as the weight of the words lands. Lieutenant Bob Page spreading a blood-soaked map on a crate, red stains bleeding into pencil markings. Other hands point at bridge icons and locomotive yards, the mission's success written alongside loss. A ledger or notebook resting on a wooden table. 2 names freshly scratched in pencil under missing. Able Seaman, Freddie Marsh, Signalman, Bluey Walters. Lion's shadow falls across the page like a verdict. Lion standing alone at the rail, dawn beginning to lift the darkness. His eyes fixed on the empty horizon. The sea rolls quietly beside him, indifferent to promises broken. First light over the Gulf of Thailand, pale pink bleeding into gray sky as the Crite runs dark. No lights visible. The sea surface smooth but tense. The calm before discovery. Japanese reconnaissance aircraft appearing low on the horizon, 3 fighters banking through morning haze. The photographer frames them small but menacing against the widening sky. On deck, commandos rigging scuttling charges, movements precise and fast. Shirts stripped off and tied into flotation bundles, rifles lashed to collapsed fullbots, fear sharp on every face. Captain Happy Harrison descending from the bridge, expression grim as he reports the aircraft. Lion listens without hesitation, authority etched into his stillness. Men poised on deck beside folded canoes, muscles taut, eyes tracking the circling aircraft above. The camera captures the instant before abandonment, discipline holding panic in check. The Japanese fighters banking away northward, silhouettes shrinking as they chase false targets. Sunlight glints off wings while the Crite remains motionless below, holding its breath. Relief breaking across the deck, men slumping where they stand, some laughing silently, others staring at the planks beneath their feet. Tension drains like water from a wound. Lion holding a creased photograph, his wife and infant son, staring back from another world. He presses it briefly to his lips, dawnlight outlining his helmet and tired eyes. Back on the River Kwai, Japanese Kempeitai interrogators lining up pose, emaciated men barely standing. Guards loom behind them with rifles, jungle smoke drifting through the camp. Final frame, a lone POW holding a harmonica, hands shaking as he's pushed forward. Behind him, smoke rises from the destroyed railway while an officer studies. Fresh blueprints nearby, destruction and reconstruction sharing the same breath.